Hey everyone, this is Mike, and if you take a look at my channel even over the last few days, you can notice that I play a wide variety of games, and that is because I'm somebody that really enjoys gaming, but if I always have to be playing the same game, I'm probably going to get bored of it at some point and then will want to play something else. Like for example, I'm playing a lot of Ori and the Will of the Wisps at the moment, but once I've finished all of the achievements, I'm probably going to move on to something else. Now, Final Fantasy XIV is one of the games, or pretty much one of the only games that has been able to keep my attention over like almost 4 years now at this point. And very few games are able to do it to the same extent that Final Fantasy does. Like for example, Destiny 2 is another game that I've been playing since it came out on PC, which is I believe 2.5 years ago or something like that. Maybe a little bit less. But I've been playing it constantly as well. But I maybe have like 1,000 hours on that game, whereas if I look at Final Fantasy, I've got over 6,000 hours on that game. I think I might even have more at this point, but I haven't checked. So Final Fantasy is one of those games that just just gets me keep coming back to it, and that is because of the wide variety of stuff that I can do in the game. And now I'm not necessarily talking about variety in the content that the game offers, because if we look for example at Shadowbringers right now, there isn't a huge amount of variety in the game. You have a few extreme primals, you've got your raids, but only the last 4 raid bosses are actually current content that people still do. And then we have one ultimate if we're taking a look at like for example the raiding content, which is of course what I am most interested in. There's also a lot of other stuff like for example the crafting content that I talked about 2 days ago, but that's not necessarily something that interests me that much. Now, for all of the people that were watching me before I did the guides for this Savage tier, they probably all remember me as a tank. I tanked not Delta's Gate, Eden's Gate, and then I also tanked for Alexander Ultimate, and then I announced towards the end of the tier that I said, okay, Eden's Verse, I'm going to be playing caster for my team because they need a caster, and that way an old friend of them can rejoin the static as a tank. And it's something that I was actually really looking forward to, and it is because caster is the one job or the one role that I haven't really played all that much over like the last 2 years almost. I played it a bunch during Deltascape, which is where I played a lot of Red Mage because Red Mage was a new job, got really interested in it. A lot of fun. Played Red Mage for this tier's progression as well, which I enjoyed a lot, and if the Red Mage weapon was to drop, I'll probably play Red Mage for a few weeks as well, because I still really enjoy playing that job. But I'm still looking forward to trying out Black Mage once I get the weapon for that, because right now the Summoner book dropped, so it's kind of like, I feel like I kind of need to play Summoner at this point, because I have the weapon. It would just be a waste to not make use of it, because a weapon is such a big damage increase, especially for the first few weeks. It's going to be very useful, but once I do get my hands on a Red Mage or a Black Mage weapon, I'm definitely going to be switching to those other jobs because they offer a different experience to you. When it comes down to raiding in this game, you learn the fight on your specific job, and each job has to interact with the fight differently. Like for example, you have to handle disconnects in a different way, or of course you're playing a total different role, or for example, so you have to pay attention to different mechanics. For example, if I look at E5 Savage Ramu, the ranged players, so like the caster, the ranged, and then the 2 healers, they have to place the thunderclouds, and then the 2 melees and the tanks, they have to get hit by the clouds to cleanse their debuff. So you have to interact with the mechanics in a different way, which keeps things fresh. So for example, when I go through Savage, it takes about, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks to get one job best in slot or one role best in slot, because of course most roles do share gear, which is again another thing that incentivizes people to try out new stuff, which I think is a really good thing, because for example, say I play Red Mage all the time and I want to try out Black Mage, instead of me having to re-gear everything from the start, I can just use my Red Mage gear and then maybe put some spell speed here or there in, or swap some pieces out. But for the most part, I can just reuse the same gear, and same goes for all the tanks, the healers. Ninja's a little bit of a weird case, but then again they share accessories with Bard and, well, with all of the ranged really. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do without needing to put in a lot of extra effort, and also needing extra gear for those other jobs might incentivize you to keep playing and keep doing those weekly clears of Savage as well, because you're like, okay, I now finished my main, maybe like I already got a few other pieces here or there, I still have like 5 books lying around of E5 or something like that. Let me spend that on some healing accessories, and then maybe when I go into Party Finder, I go find myself a learning group or like a kill party or something like that, and I'm gonna play healer for them. Like that's something that is really fun for me. For example, healing was one of the roles that I am very uncomfortable on at the moment. And then towards the end of last raid tier, I just went into Party Finder and I healed E4 Savage a few times, Titan Savage, which was a lot of fun and a very good learning experience for me. And when it comes down to the next raid tier, I would honestly love to play healer for a tier, because it is something that I have very little experience on, and it also keeps the game fresh for me, because if you're always playing the same job, of course you're going to create a certain amount of comfort on that job, and you're also going to get very good at it, because like what I'm doing right now is technically not that great if you want to like play really well, because you're kind of turning into a jack of all trades, master of none. But when you're playing that one job a lot, you get to get really good at it because you have so much experience on it. And that is kind of why right now I'm playing so much Summoner, because it is a job that I was not that good at. I didn't really play it at all since Delta Escape. Like, I got it to level 80 and that was it. I like looked at Phoenix a bit, I'm like, oh, it's cool summon. But then I didn't really play it anymore. And when I first took it into Savage again, when I got that weapon, I noticed that I was playing like trash. Like, even though I had gear, which most people didn't have, I was still underperforming compared to those other people, because FF logs exist and you can kind of compare yourself against other players. But then now, a few weeks later, I've had more experience on it, I've been able to practice a bit more, and I can gradually see an increase in my skill level on that job, and that is something that I really like to see. I am someone that doesn't necessarily play favorites when it comes to Final Fantasy. Yes, stuff like Warrior and Gunbreaker, the tank role in a whole, is what I enjoy the most in this game. But when it comes down to learning new jobs, I always find it extremely fun to do so, because you get those new experiences, you get to be better at a certain role as well, and it just makes you a better player overall as well, in my opinion, when you can play multiple roles or multiple jobs in a certain role as well. And it's very helpful towards the rest of your party, or in party finder situations as well, because for example, say you play tank, like tank is your main role, it's the only thing you have gear for, and you go into a party finder, and say you play warrior as your main tank, for example, and you join a party finder, but you already notice that they already have a warrior. Now, in most cases, people don't like to run doubles because it limits the LB generation, also limits the utility that you have usually, and most people just don't like to have two jobs, or the same two jobs in a party. So instead of just being like, well shit, I can't join this party because I only play warrior, no, you can switch to Gunbreaker or something like that and still play well. For example, that's what I did for Eden's Gate. I mainly played Gunbreaker, but then when they already had a Gunbreaker in the party, I would just switch to Warrior and play that for that week instead, or something like that. And it was always a lot of fun, and right now switching over to that caster role is basically a whole new challenge for me to get good at this new role, getting used to playing DPS again, being a lot more focused on playing the rotation right, because of course when it comes down to healing and tanking, the rotations of those jobs are a lot more simple, because their main like focus point should be on keeping the party alive, minimizing the amount of healing that you need to do, maximizing the amount of DPS you can do, especially when it comes down to healers, and then when it comes down to tanking, making sure that your defensive cooldown rotation is correct and that your boss positioning as well, and that kind of stuff. So it kind of takes away from like the difficulty of their rotation, whereas when it comes down to DPS players, their DPS rotation is a lot more complex, because that is their whole role, being good at playing that DPS rotation. So that's why I think the different variety that you get from all of the different roles that you can play in this game is something that is just always really interesting and very engaging to me. For example, once I get the Black Mage weapon, I'm gonna have to learn all of the fights from scrap again, because all of a sudden I'm going to be stuck on a job that has a lot more limited movability if I compare it against something like a Red Mage or a Summoner, because they are very mobile jobs. Black Mage, still very mobile in burst, like wherein you have that triple cast, or when you have that swift cast, Xenoglossy and stuff saved up. But then when you, for example, need to put down your ley lines, or you don't have those instant casts available to you, then you're going to be kind of like a rock. So I do have to kind of get used to all of the fights again, see where I can do what, where I need to save certain instant casts and that kind of stuff. And it's going to be a lot of fun for me. So if you're somebody that plays a lot of Final Fantasy and you're getting kind of bored at the game, you're not quite sure whether or not you should just take a break, because of course that's totally fine. Certain people just come back for a patch, they play for a month or two, and then they unsub until the next patch comes out, because that's the beauty about the patch cycle that Final Fantasy XIV has. It allows players to just take a break, come back, and not really miss anything. But if you're somebody that, like me, that wants to just keep playing the game, and you might get bored of a certain job at some point, try out something different. Just maybe play a different job in that certain role that you're already playing. Like for example, if you were playing Gunbreaker all the time, try Warrior or Dark Knight or Paladin. And if maybe you get bored of the tank role altogether, try Healer or play a DPS or something like that. A friend of mine has always been playing Healer pretty much from when I got to know him, and before that he played Healer already as well. And right now he's playing Dragoon, and he's having a lot of fun on that job as well, trying to learn all the intricacies on how to play a DPS well and that kind of stuff as well. And for me it's going to be a lot of fun transitioning into Black Mage as well once I do get that weapon, because learning Summoner came with some struggles in the start, but now it's paying off, and me getting better at the job is also very fulfilling to me, because now I'm like, okay, I'm getting better, I'm not feeling as useless anymore, and it just means that I have yet another job that I can add to my resume, so to speak, that I can play relatively well. And then when I get to do it on Black Mage all over again, it's just going to mean that the content that I've now been farming for like a month, 2 months, is still going to feel fresh to me, because I have to relearn a lot of stuff, and it just keeps me very interested in the game. So that's kind of all I wanted to talk about today. Variety is something that keeps me interested in games, and when it comes down to the job variety that you have in Final Fantasy and how easy it is for you to switch in between different jobs, makes it just that I am having a very good time at this game. But that's all I wanted to talk about. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.